is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
Okay, right, sorry about that. I don't know what just happened in me clicking. Welcome to today's stream. Welcome to anyone that is new watching. Make sure that you like the stream so then it puts it out to more people. You can comment obviously in the chat. Any questions that you have, just put a capital Q or question at the start. And that will sort of highlight it for me. But yeah, welcome. My name's Claire. I'm the ethical tailor, the worst person to introduce themselves. So I'll try and do a little bit for anyone new that's here. I call myself the ethical tailor because I've been in the sort of sustainability realm since I graduated just after 2007. And I kind of have evolved within that and built up my own business that does garment alterations, because I never wanted to be someone that puts out new clothes to the world, because we're already overrun. Even back then I saw that. And I graduated from doing menswear, so I really like the construction of garments, which is kind of what led me into the sort of tailoring alteration side. Of which I do that for any type of clothes. It's coming up to wedding dress season, so I've got a bunch of them coming in, and some prom dresses, which is really fun. Within that, I like to sort of educate people around how to sort of altering their clothes and how to like rewear their wardrobe so that they don't have to buy more. Which I've seen such a change in people coming to me with sort of garments just from their wardrobe since lockdown. And for the past 5 years, I've been teaching alongside that people how to, from sort of basic sewing skills up to making garments. But actually that all started with teaching people how to do alterations themselves. Because as with anything, I got a lot of people saying it costs so much to get stuff altered. So I just want, rather than sort of lecture them on why it costs that much, why I charge that much, I kind of thought, well, if I can show them the work that goes into it, then they will sort of hopefully learn to appreciate their clothes a little bit more, and kind of think about what they're buying. Through whatever means they kind of purchase, whether it be secondhand or new. So that's kind of a little intro on that. Then I started the YouTube I started it like in 2020, but I properly started doing streams like this about 6 months ago, again to educate people on sort of the fashion industry, to expose some of the bad sides that I feel like are only really within the echo bubble the echo bubble of sort of people within sustainability anyway. So I kind of want to expand that out to other people, and I hope I'm doing that here. And then sort of as of April with Fashion Revolution Week, because I wasn't around for that actual week, I thought I would kind of expand over a few months, getting a bunch of people on to sort of talk about their sustainability journeys and sort of different topics that they're quite passionate about within that. So today I'm going to bring on Zoe. Hey Zoe.
Hi.
We'll just say hello to some people that have popped in already. Kim, Hello, looking forward to this. Hans Christian, hello there. And Maya, hello. Fabulous. So, welcome, Zoe, to my little
Thank you.
channel.
This is fun. It's a bit nerve-wracking as well because I don't normally do live. So
Honestly, every time I do it, I get so nervous, but it's why I like to do it with someone with me. But yeah, it's kind of as well as kind of doing this for other people, I also sort of do it for myself to kind of push myself to get out there a bit. So
yeah, exactly.
here we are. So yeah, if you want to introduce yourself, I know you obviously through your podcast, Check Your Thread. But yeah, so if you want to sort of talk about your maybe lead up into sustainability within, sustainability as a whole, and then kind of sort of a bit of what you do.
Sure. So my name's Zoe. I live on the south coast of the UK, near Brighton. Although I'm actually from, like you, Claire, I'm actually from Essex originally.
Hey!
I have been pretty obsessed with sewing for the last 15 years or so. I also studied fashion at university. I studied fashion design, graduated a little bit before you. I had a couple of jobs within the clothing industry and found that although I have a massive love of clothing and what clothing means in terms of like expressing yourself and things like that, actually working within clothing was something that I found really difficult because of the amount of waste that I was witnessing and also the kind of poor quality fabrics that I know were being used in the companies that I was working for. So I left the clothing industry. And then about 15, 16 years ago, I got really into making my own clothes. Like I got really, really passionate about exploring that as a way to kind of extract myself from the clothing industry, from fast fashion. Just to become kind of self-sufficient as I saw it in clothing, that I didn't need to rely on shops that were producing clothing in a really unethical way that were not going to last for very long and didn't necessarily express who I was as well. So I've just been on a journey with that, really. I started my blog, Sozo What Do You Know, about 15 years ago, just to kind of document what I was doing, document my journey, my explorations into making all different kinds of clothing. The sewing community was something that was really burgeoning then, in about 2007. I kind of become part of that. And it was just a really exciting time, seeing people all over the world making stuff and starting to have discussions about sustainability, although that wasn't really the term that we were using at the time. But using clothing and sewing as a way to kind of explore those ideas was something that I was really, really interested in. So then I started Me Made May about 15 years ago. I'm not going to go into that because that's a whole other thing. But that's a kind of wardrobe challenge that people can participate in, and that's been going for about 15 years now. It's got pretty big, and I'm mentioning it because it's May right now. So a lot of people are challenging themselves for that.
Do go and check it out.
Check out the hashtag Me Made May 2024 if you're on Instagram. Otherwise, you don't have to be on Instagram to participate. It's an opportunity for you to create your own pledge to help you learn more about your clothes, learn more about yourself, and then learn lessons that you can apply to your future making and your future kind of wardrobe development. I think I probably made that sound really boring, but it's a lot of fun. It's as well. Anyway, so long story short, I was working. Then I've done a lot of things related to sewing. Teaching sewing was a thing that I did for a long time. I still do sometimes. That was my main thing for about 8 years. And also I used to work for a clothing charity called Trade. And I used to make clothing for them, kind of upcycling existing garments and donated textiles. So that was a way that I kind of was able to work within clothing, but in a way that kind of chimed better with my own kind of sensibilities around waste and putting things out in the world. And then more recently, over the last 2.5, nearly 3 years now, I've been making a podcast called Check Your Thread, which specifically looks at how we can sew more sustainably, really enjoy it, like have a real love of sewing, but how we can do it in a way that has less of an impact, and how that doesn't have to be boring and that doesn't have to feel restrictive. That can actually be really exciting. And there's so many aspects that I try to cover related to that, and I swear, like every day I'm discovering new people or new angles to look at it from. Like, it's amazing. Like, I didn't realize when I started it that at this point I would still, like, my list of topics I want to explore, my list of people I want to contact is ridiculous. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to run out of things I want to explore within that, and it just keeps growing. So yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot in the last 3 years, from all the people that I've spoken to and all the kind of explorations that I've done, my solo explorations for the podcast. It's been a really good kind of excuse for myself to really kind of learn and explore, and yeah, it's been a really exciting journey.
Wonderful. That is, yeah. You sound like you've done so much. I always feel like I sort of kind of have forced my way into things, because I didn't sort of get many sort of opportunities, but I have more that kind of direct experience of kind of shop floor and sort of seeing like the ways in which people kind of shop and things like that. They're always kind of like, I think that got me bogged down even more in a lot of things. So yeah, it's sort of nice when you kind of can emerge out and sort of start doing what you were sort of born to do as such.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I really feel like a lot of the things that I've been doing has kind of led me to making the podcast, and yeah, I feel like this is the right thing for me to be doing right now.
Oh, exciting. But yeah, you saying as well, like, you've got so many topics, honestly, like every time me and Whitney like finish a stream, we're like, all right, we could sort of go more into that or go more into that.
Absolutely. And even when you've explored a topic, you feel like you could go really into the minutiae of it, couldn't you? You could really like take one part of it and really focus in, and that in itself could be fascinating. And then equally, you can go really broad and take a real big overview of something, about exploring like why you're doing something, why that's important, what that means on a more societal or cultural or personal level, or, you know,
exactly.
like everything can be looked at from different angles. And as soon as you bring somebody else in as well, they have their whole angle as well, and their whole wealth of knowledge and experience and thoughts and perceptions. So it's kind of endless. It really is endless.
Exactly. And that's why I like sort of getting people on, and also listening to, you know, whatever type of podcast I listen to, because I listen to a range, you know, when they have people on, because you get those like two sides, you know, it's sort of, it's very easy to get sort of taken on a journey on like one person's thoughts and sort of point of view on a subject. Whereas like if you've got two people, you're always sort of getting those two angles. So
yeah, it makes it more fresh, doesn't it?
Exactly. So yeah, I look forward to whatever you have coming up.
Oh, there's so much. I've got so many cool things coming up.
Fabulous. Well, so I put your link to your website in the comments, so people can click through to that. But it's also in the description for your website, your Instagram, and the podcast as well. And yeah, so everyone
you can find it in any podcast app, whether you use Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Pocket Cast or any of them, or if you don't have any of those, you can just listen via the website as well.
Oh, cool, that's good. Just checking some extra people that have come in. Susan, hello there from Aberdeen, and Diana, I love the broad topics that are covered on the podcast. Always feel fresh and interesting. They do indeed. And we've got one from Stash Hub. Hey, Stash Hub.
Hi, Yvette.
I feel like I've like sort of like learned so many you know, kind of people through your podcast as well. So I'm trying to sort of bring, you know, sort of like different when kind of we talk about different topics on here, it's sort of kind of bringing those out to like other people as well. It's sort of nice when you can sort of infiltrate from like other places.
Yeah, it's like a web of very cool people doing lots of cool things.
Exactly. Right, fabulous. So let's get on to today's topic of sewing more sustainably, and sort of all the kind of avenues that go into that. Where did you want to start?
Well, I think the easiest way to start would be, I guess, my kind of what I've come to think of as kind of like my foundational kind of philosophy about it, which is something that has come to me through exploring it via the podcast. It's certainly not something that I brought initially, but I think the more that I think about it in terms of how we can sew specifically garments more sustainably, I think that we need to keep the goal that we are making clothes that we want to get a lot of use from for a long time. Like, obviously there'll be exceptions, like if you're making something for a very special occasion, or if you're making something that's very seasonally specific, obviously you're not going to get maybe so much wear from those things. But I think generally speaking, most of our sewing, we should be aiming for making clothing that lasts for a pretty long time and we get lots of use from it. That should be the goal. And I think that the way that we can do that, there's 3 things that we can aim for that will help us achieve that. We want to be making clothes that really suit our personal sense of style, like our personal aesthetic. I mean, obviously there are trends that come and go, and that is something that definitely influences a lot of sewers, especially if they're people that like to sew from sewing patterns as opposed to like drafting their own patterns. Perhaps if you sew from sewing patterns, often trends come through. It's easy to kind of get whipped up into the trends that are coming through and that you're seeing a lot of, if you follow sewing accounts on social media or things like that. You can almost get I don't know, like see so much of something, you kind of think, oh, maybe I should make that, and that's fine if it's something that really genuinely does chime with your personal sense of style. But yeah, just being a bit kind of taking a pause, kind of questioning, like, is this something that I genuinely really like? Like, is it something that I think is going to represent me? And I know that it's kind of a bit philosophical and it's hard to maybe pinpoint, but I think that there are ways that we can learn about what we genuinely like, things that we can do to help ourselves. Something that I often think is a really good idea. I mean, many people are users of Pinterest, and I think that can be a really useful app, because the more that you
that wasn't meant to go up.
the more that you kind of can like pin and save things that really speak to you, and I think that when you're looking through Pinterest, you get that real kind of like gut reaction to something, don't you? Like, oh, love, not so much.
There's so many folders.
Yeah, exactly. And when you can start to collate things that genuinely, like, your gut is, oh, that's great, then you can go back into that board almost kind of almost like externally, and then kind of have a look and see what are the common threads here, excuse the pun. What are the
definitely
common like themes, the colors, the details. Like, for me, I look in my Pinterest boards, there's a lot of dungarees, there are a lot of blouses with ruffles. I really like a ruffly blouse. There's a lot of kind of boxy jackets and coats. I quite like that kind of cocoon, kind of boxy shape, and that's something that I can learn about myself just through looking at the things that my gut has kind of saved, so that's one way you can learn about your personal style. I know, and it's something that obviously will develop slowly over time, but generally speaking, I think if you make something that you really love, you'll still like it in 5 years' time, even if it was part of a trend and that trend has waned a bit. I think that if it really speaks to you, then you'll still like it.
That's the thing. Trends is different to style as well. It's sort of, don't think everything needs to be in trend. It's sort of
exactly.
It's,
but also
it's quite good when like you find yourself within that every now and then. But it's sort of
yeah, totally. You're like, oh, something that I like back in trend. That's cool, because it means that'll be more available as well.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. So then the other aspect is making something that suits your lifestyle, like how you actually live your life, where you actually live it, what climate you're in, what kind of temperature, your job or your activities that you do regularly. There's no point making, like, for example, a blouse with beautiful big billowy sleeves, but you work in childcare or you're a gardener, and you can still make those things, but think that, like, I'm not going to wear these so much at work.
Exactly.
Will I have enough opportunity to even really do that? Like, will I wear them in the future? Maybe it's just something that I kind of enjoy and I just accept that that's nice, but maybe it's not for me. Or, for example, if there's, blouses with big puffy sleeves. That's been a big trend for quite a while now, hasn't it? Maybe you really love them, but yeah, once again, you work in childcare or you work in a garden or something, or you know, maybe it'd be better to make a sweatshirt with that kind of sleeve rather than a blouse that needs ironing every day or something like that. You know,
Could you
sorry,
do like no, I was just thinking like with like the sort of the bigger sleeve, like could it be like a shorter sleeve so then it's not all over your hands and things like that? Because it's sort of like it's always those things that then like you've got to cook or like I paint and things like that, and it's like it sort of gets in the way. So it's kind of shorter,
and it's not that you don't love those things, but it's like, are you going to reach for them regularly? Like, you're probably not, if you don't have the kind of lifestyle where you go out for like nice dinners or you go to the theater or something, like how many fancy dresses do you need? Or and then that's fine, like maybe one or two. I mean, I hardly ever go out somewhere fancy, so I've got one nice dress. That's all I need, basically. I've got one nice dress and one that can also be worn to work at a push. So that's literally all I need. So until those ones die, like I probably don't really need it. But maybe I could, if there's an element of something that I like in specific, what looks quite fancy, is there a way for me to interpret it so it's more suitable for day wear, for example, so kind of think about that kind of thing. And and your climate as well, where you live, like there's obviously a big trend for kind of quilted gilets and quilted jackets and stuff at the moment, like, but if you live like in northern Australia, props not going to need that. Is there a way that you could, I don't know, interpret that trend, make a quilted bag or beach bag, or I don't know, do you know what I mean? Like there's ways that we can enjoy things, but interpret them in a way that's suitable for actually how we live our lives and the venues in which we live our lives,
Exactly. I think that's really interesting. And just one here from Stash Hub.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Style the same things in different ways to get more out of it.
I love that.
And that's the thing, like sometimes sort of, I always go through this in myself. I've got so many dresses and I always want to make dresses. But then it's like, is it actually better just to have two-piece? Sort of, I've done one recently that I'm kind of making. And I'm actually making them as a two-piece, so it can be like one, so then it looks like a dress, but actually they're made slightly separate, because I find that I don't have enough patterned bottoms for like my plain tops, and sort of like, and kind of a bit like vice versa. But so that's kind of like something that I'm sort of exploring in myself, because like this year I sort of have given myself a challenge of making with my sort of like stash that I have, because I'm a fabric buyer, but then I don't, it's not that I won't make anything from it, I just don't have the time. So it's like I really want to give that as part of like a self-love kind of thing, give myself some time, like an hour a day, half an hour a day to kind of start sewing. To be honest, I'm very bad at it, and I end up sewing for like 4 hours, and then I'm like, it's like 10 o'clock at night, I need to get home because my studio is in a very different place than where I live. So but I just sort of get a bit carried away with it, but it's kind of something that I want to do. So I think this kind of thing of like styling things in different ways, maybe sort of having it as like a top and a bottom that then you can wear together, but you don't have to.
Same with like a jumpsuit, you could make a top and a bottom. And to Yvette's point, also like thinking about the colors as well, like obviously a lot of us are very drawn to various prints and patterns, but you don't need that many really in your wardrobe, because it does restrict your ability to kind of make cohesive outfits, subjectively speaking, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe like, you love a particular trend, you love a particular thing, but think about maybe making it in a solid or a stripe or something that's got a little bit more kind of versatility in terms of how you can put it together.
Yeah, exactly. I can so relate to this. I love bell sleeves, but they get in the way of everything, which is the same. Also, I'm very much, I like a sleeve, but then I'm like a constant pusher it up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a closed sleeve. So yeah, that's like something that I always try and sort of, when I make something, also I'm like, actually maybe it's just better around the elbow.
Yeah. Or make it so it's got like elasticated cuff rather than
so then it can be
band. So it's much, I mean, the blouse I'm wearing underneath this has got elasticated and I've pushed it right up just because it's easier.
Yeah,
you know, you've got that option.
Yeah, definitely.
You know that about yourself. You know, like you're going to do the washing up, or you're going to do some painting, or you're going to get stuck into a project. You want to naturally do that. Like,
it's
build that into your garment, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think learning about that about yourself, that's just something that you have to do kind of over time. And I think one way you can find out about what are the most successful garments for your lifestyle is just to really kind of pay attention to what you regularly wear. You know, I'm not saying you need to recreate those specific garments, but just use that information. Like there's different ways you can do it. Like obviously participating in Me Made May is one opportunity where people can really focus on what they wear, what they want to wear for a month. But another fun way you can do it is, for example, in your clothing rail or your clothing rack or your wardrobe, whatever you've got, try and shove everything kind of more to one end. And when you wear something, like put it to the other end, or turn the hanger around, or do something where you can indicate that that's been worn that month or that season or whatever, however the time period is you're going to do, and then kind of do that. And then at the end of that time frame, you have a really easy kind of visual representation of what it is that you're wearing a lot. Or maybe make a note when you're doing the laundry, what items are going through the laundry again and again and again, you know. Often they're the items that need to be mended more frequently because they're getting more use. There's so many ways that you can just, with a little bit more kind of focus, you can learn a lot about what you want to wear and what you need. And as I say, you don't need to replicate those items, but it will give you useful, I mean, for example, like what kind of
an idea of shape and things like that.
Yeah, and what kind of fabrics you drawn to, like, you know, do you wear things that need to be ironed? Do you prefer knit garments, or, you know, what are you reaching for a lot, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. And the last thing, oh sorry, to read up.
No, sorry, I was just going to say Diana's other comment, which is a good one that we can go into. Adapting my sewing plans to the way I live has helped me make a wardrobe more wearable, thus more set.
I love that. That is exactly it. Like, completely just nailed it. Exactly. And then the last point, so it's making things that suit your personal style, your lifestyle, and the last thing is that fit your body. And this can be a little bit more challenging because it definitely is a bit of more of a learning curve. but yeah, and it's something that obviously you learn about over time. It's not knowledge that you immediately acquire, but trying to make garments that fit your body well, and you can start that by, you know, learning from existing garments that you always have, or when you've tried things on in the shops or something, like what are the bits of those garments that sometimes you struggle with. Like for me, for example, like before I started making my own clothes, I really always struggled to find tops and dresses that fit well at the top, but then weren't tight around my tummy and down, because I am, like many people, I kind of blend out a size between that. And then I knew that. So when I came to making my own clothes, that's something that then I could apply. And now, like, I don't think I could ever shop for a top again, because I could never imagine that kind of discomfort again that I used to feel all the time, you know. And now that I can always make things that actually blend out in the right way, so they have the right amount of ease at certain points, you know. Similarly, I mean, everyone has their own cluster of alterations that they need to do. Maybe somebody, whenever they try and buy skinny jeans, they always find that they're too tight around their, or any jeans, they're too tight around their calves. Or people find that they are, I mean, you know, they're always having to put a belt on things because they always stick out of the back, you know, or they always find that shoulders are too square or too slopey for them. Or there's so many clues that you can take from either existing garments you have or things that you've tried to make work in the past but didn't, you know. And it was a bit of a learning curve, but there is so much help out there in terms of books, in terms of YouTube videos, in terms of blog posts. There's so much about garment alteration, pattern alteration, and just simply, just trying to learn and just make, each time you make something, maybe just think about, okay, I'm going to make one or two little alterations just to make this fit me a little bit better, and learn from that. And if you've got the patience and the time, make a toile or a muslin, make a mock-up of that, especially if it's something that you're going to be making in like quite expensive or really special fabric. Just try and find a little bit of patience, that little bit of extra time. And I know that that's not always easy to find if you're busy, but to make that mock-up, because especially if it's a pattern you're going to make again and again and again as well, if it's something you think you can come back to regularly, make a toile, make a muslin, and learn from it, and maybe try and make a few tweaks. And I know that it can be hard to, like, you've made the muslin, you're like, now what? But as I say, there is a lot of help online to help diagnose what you might need to do, and then how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing that I always say to people, like when you're sort of buying patterns, or if you're sort of like making from scratch yourself, try out sort of different like necklines on yourself, particularly with the darts as well, which actually that's why I brought up the slides again, because I thought we'd just sort of go through that, because that's always the darts is always the one that people don't sort of know kind of how to sort of necessarily like what they do, and kind of how best to use them. So it's one that I always want to sort of explain quite well to people when they think about sort of making garments for themselves, because it does make a big difference as to whether you will actually wear something again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I often like say to people, even if you're just making like sort of the top half of a garment, just the front half, just like one half of it, it's sort of, you don't have to make the whole garment as a trial. You can just get that one piece right, work on that a few times, and then, like you say, then sort of make it in the final fabric and things like that. Because I do a lot of my stuff sort of making straight in the final fabric, because for coming out of uni and doing a whole collection, I've got so many toiles, and I don't know really what to do with them, because I don't throw anything away. So it's sort of I kind of got myself into this thing of like not doing toiles again. But so then in sort of making the final fabric, I just have like massive seam allowance, and sort of so then I can out with it within that. But obviously sort of like
they don't need to be made out of calico. They can be made out of like an old bed sheet, or some old curtains that you've got, or something you can find from a charity shop, or some fabric that's been in your stash forever that you really know, actually, this is not my color, this is not my print. Then use it to make as a toile. Like if it's just sitting there, it's not going to be used for anything anyway. You don't have to shell out loads of money on fresh calico or anything. It does feel like a real waste.
Yeah, exactly, that's the thing. And and maybe it comes out right, and then you've got another garment. It's sort of, it's one of those things.
Or you could make a wearable, at minimum, like make a wearable toile in slightly cheaper fabric than the really special stuff. Like, please.
Exactly. Maybe it's like a gardening outfit or something like that.
But also, you've been doing this for years. You've been doing this for 15 years or something now. You've got a lot of experience. Like most people.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like for everyone to do that.
Yeah.
It's just like a state of mind that I've sort of gotten myself in. But that's why then, like I say to people, so then they don't have to think, I have to like make get a whole another load of fabric and whatever. If they don't have something else to use, then like you can just like use that part of it and sort of understand kind of how things best sit on you.
And at the absolute least, hold the pattern piece up to you. Like if it's got a dart, hold the dart out and pin it as if it's been stitched, and at least hold the pattern piece up. You'll at least get an idea of how the length is, how the volume is, if it's actually going to stretch around your hips or whatever it is. At the very minimum,
sit in the right waist area that you want it, and things like that.
And I just really want to emphasize that by having to make any changes to a sewing pattern, it's not a flaw in your body, this is something I've experienced a lot when teaching sewing classes. People feel sometimes, not everybody, but some people think that if they've had to make a change in their pattern, that their body's the fault, you know, that's the blame. It's like, no, because the sewing patterns are gonna only fit out the packet for maybe what 5%, even if that, of people who are buying it. You know, the vast majority of us need to make some changes to get a really good fit, and that is fine. It's not, you know, it's not a flaw, it's not a mistake, it's nothing that you should be blamed for. You know, it's because you've got a body, and every body is
Yeah.
different. Like, I'm sure everyone's seen those kind of comparison things where, for example, they have like a row of women and they're all technically the same bust measurement or the same size, like commercial dress size. And actually, if you see them, they're all different. They're so different. They have their proportions, their shapes, everything is unique. And that is amazing. And it means that we all have to make a little thing here and there to get closer to a really good fit. Because as you say, if something doesn't fit well, you're not going to reach for it. You're just going to pass over to the thing that you know does fit well.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the thing. We should be, we should be like celebrating our bodies and, not sort of thinking, oh, I don't fit into that, because no, it doesn't fit you, not you don't fit it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I think that's sort of such a sentiment that I have as well. Is sort of again, it's sort of like, it's why I'd rather do the alterations, because it's such an underrated part of the garment sort of wearing process, really. You know, it's sort of like, how many things do people have in their wardrobes that they've only sort of tried on? Maybe it's still got the tags on or not, but you know, they tried it on and it didn't quite fit. Maybe they wore it once and then they've not worn it again because they weren't at like sort of 100% happy. And it might just be, you know, like you say, that you sort of lift the shoulders slightly. And actually within that, I get a lot of people saying, oh, I need to like lift the shoulders. No, you need to shorten the body. Because you can have a shorter front body than what you do back body. You can have a shorter back body than what you do front body. It's totally fine. You know, I always say to people, I've got a longer back than what like a standard 8 is. But my sort of front is kind of, well, I mean, sometimes more of that, sometimes not. My back, I have a shallow back, so I always have to do a dart there. You know, so then within that, I may not go for something that has like a pleat in the back, because it really sort of just makes my back look weird. And like I say, you might need to sort of shorten the body into something. Always look at, if you are pinching up the shoulder, how far the underarm goes. If it's cutting into you, then it means that it's not the shoulder. It means it's that body. But equally, I do have sort of a slightly shorter here from what like the standard sort of commercial patterns and sort of high street is, because also what people don't realize is that commercial patterns are actually off the same size sort of charts as what the fast fashion industry, well, not the fast fashion industry, I shouldn't place it like that, as the high street is. And a lot of them don't kind of sort of redo their sizing charts for what their sort of customer audience base is. Marks and Spencer's is the only ones that I know in terms of sort of high street who do actually get like a bunch of sort of their customers in to do that sort of process. I don't know how kind of different pattern companies do it. But I think, you know, that's kind of, you know, sort of an interesting thing. And I wish that more places did do that, because I think it would work better for people, because then they're getting, you know, you'll never be able to make, you know, sort of like it goes into then like bespoke making, if like you're making something for every person. But at least if you get, you know, sort of like 100 women that are all meant to be like a size 12, and then you sort of measure sort of like the unique differences between them, you can get a better average for them what that size 12 is, you know, sort of 10, 16, whatever it is. So that's kind of one of the things. But sort of within, like you say, sort of garments that you might have, or like patterns that you have, you can sort of take those, so say like you like a top of something that fits you really well, but then the bottoms don't. So then, do you size up in the bottom? Do you go for a different type of skirt? It might be like too voluminous on the hips or things like that. Do you want to sort of smooth it down? And then within that, I was just going to bring up this about the darts, because a lot of people, again, think that they have to go for the darts that's on a particular pattern, but you don't. You can also change them within sort of, again, like what suits you best. So what is kind of said as such about darts is ones that go up from the side into the bust are meant to enhance a bust. Those that go down from like the armhole or arm side into the bust are meant to reduce. As well as how you how you press your darts will also change that. So again, it's like an optical illusion, and it's just something that's kind of is generally said, but it may not sort of work for you. But when you press a dart down, it's again meant to enhance. When you press it up, then it's meant to reduce.
Right.
So it's just sort of like different things that you can kind of do within the pressing, and how like you sew something, as to then sort of how it will look in like the final garment. And then like with this one is just about kind of using those darts. So this would probably go into more when you are sort of like making a pattern yourself, when you're a bit more experienced, even with a broad pattern, that then you can manipulate it more. But you can see the dart manipulation is just where they have either sort of moved a dart to expand it into two different areas, or they have taken those two areas and then turned the dart into a different position. The add-in fullness is if you want to give more room to a garment, and as well as using that dart as a dart as well.
Yeah, also known as a full bust adjustment.
Yeah, exactly. And then the contouring is more like when you're using the darts as seams. So this would be like a princess line dart. But yeah, so that's just sort of like kind of some different positions that you can kind of put your darts in, as to sort of like what you prefer. Also, like a lot of people kind of get worried about having to use that front one that like goes down from the bust into the waist. But unless you really want something particularly fitted, unless you have got a larger bust, then I don't particularly use them, like unless it's sort of something that I'm making, like in terms of sort of paneling of a garment. Like I say, I mostly just use the back darts.
I'm so sorry, I've just got to get a delivery.
Right.
One sec.
Oh gosh, that's fine. So don't think that you have to use those sort of lower darts at all. Kind of use whatever suits you. But obviously I know sort of when you get when you're making just from a standard pattern, it's sort of hard to understand sort of what you can take. It's sort of like leaving and take away. But also if you cut the garment out, like we were saying, in sort of maybe a toile fabric, and place it on you or place it on a mannequin that you might have, or if a friend will allow you sort of be your model, you can kind of see how the garment looks without having put them darts in, and then also pinch them in, because you may want them a bit bigger than what the dart says on the pattern, you might want it a bit less. You might want to slightly, ever so slightly, change the position of it, because as long as, say, like it's coming out of the armhole, you have a little bit of room to sort of move it up or down. But you can't obviously go from there and then move it down here out of the side seam. You would need to do a big old adjustment for that. But, you know, so don't kind of think, oh, I have to go exactly how the pattern is. You can also like sort of just see how the cloth and the sort of pattern style kind of suits your body, and just make those tiny little adjustments to yourself. So yeah, that was just a little intro into darts.
Cool.
But yeah, I should probably do like a proper video on all that, because I was thinking it yesterday actually that I need to do one on draping, because I get a lot of people ask me about draping, but it's hard to teach, and it's sort of, I always kind of think, unless people really understand that draping is sort of more just about like sort of placing, like, you go, sort of like throwing fabric on a mannequin as such, and then kind of playing about with it. You know, there isn't an actual technique as such. It's just you're just having fun with fabric.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like I'm going to do that as a little video.
I think then you've got the challenge of, once you've created something that you like, then taking that off and then trying to make that into maybe a pattern so it can be replicated.
Yeah, that's always like sort of my like the worst part of it, because it's like you do all that work to sort of ping it all in place, and then you're like
you're like, now what? I just wear that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and I wanted to bring this up from earlier from Kim. Also, what kind of fit features you enjoy? Yeah, so that sort of goes into like the darts and things like that. Is really good to sort of find, oh, you know, I like how that neck is, I like how that shoulder strap is, I like how that sleeve is. Then the more you sort of get used to kind of sewing and things, you can, you know, start to, and that would be like a one to do definitely in like a sort of a trial, like sort of basic fabric, to sort of take all those elements and then be like, let's see how it goes, you know, sort of, because when you're newly getting into sort of pattern manipulation, you're just sort of going with it, you know. It's sort of it's why, like, I get a lot of people who make a whole like garment with me sometimes, because they get so scared about it, and I'm like, oh, you know, anyone can do it. It's but there is kind of a process, so I always understand that sort of that's the bit that people get
it can be quite intimidating, can't it?
Yeah, exactly. Fabulous. Right, was there anything else that you wanted to expand on with all that? I feel like we've
I just want to maybe touch slightly on the topic of sewing for body changes, because I think that's a really important aspect of sewing more sustainably that's going to affect everybody. Because once again, like we were talking about, like if you have to make alterations to a pattern, it's not your body's fault. Equally, it's not your body's fault or your fault if your body has changed. Like your body will change. Like there's no way your body's going to stay the same dimensions, the same proportions.
Seam allowance is your friend.
Yeah, so I just really want to emphasize that it's going to happen. It's something that you shouldn't, you know, hate yourself for. But and also there's different types of kind of body changes. Obviously, there's like just the general aging and what that can do, often like thickening the waist, like sloping of the shoulders, maybe forward shoulders. There's things like that can happen over a number of years. But there are also body changes that can happen over a shorter period of time. Maybe like if you're a period haver, maybe that happens over the course of your cycle. Like there's some parts of your cycle where you're more bloated or you're fuller in the waist and what have you. If you're on medication or you've had you've got some sort of health thing that can affect your body changes, you know, that can make your body change quite rapidly. There's so many different reasons. There's so many different things. Like if you've had a child, if you've breastfed, like, you know, if you've been pregnant, there's so many different ways that bodies can change, and they're fine. That is all fine. You shouldn't then be forced you shouldn't be then forcing yourself into clothes that are uncomfortable just because you think, oh well, you know, like, or like, you know, you've put some weight on. So did everyone on lockdown. That's
Yeah.
fine. Normal, like that's okay. Like, you don't punish yourself by wearing uncomfortable clothes. And there's lots of things that we can do from choosing certain styles to choosing certain fabrics to choosing certain elements of patterns to things you can do within a pattern, as you were saying, like make a larger seam allowance. That gives you more options. This is something that I explored. I did, I think, 2 episodes on sewing for body changes. I think the first one is episode 72, and then we had another follow-up one. But just a few things to mention that there are lots of patterns. If you're making maybe coats and jackets or cardigans, and maybe fluctuation is something that occurs quite a lot, maybe choosing certain styles that are kind of more cocoon shaped rather than fitted, or garments that can be adjusted, like maybe they have a tie, you know, maybe they're like a wrap style, which you can then, even throughout the course of a day, you know, often I find I'm much more you know, I've bloated by the end of the afternoon or something. Like a wrap style is inherently adjustable, and you can do that even within the day, let alone over the course of a month or something. So garments that have a wrap to them, you know, that's really helpful. Or garments that are kind of like cardigans and things that are just like open, they're loose, like it doesn't matter, you know, how you're feeling throughout the day or throughout the month, you know, that's always going to fit. Things that close pin closures, or you know, like shawl pins, things like that, that is inherently adjustable as well.
I was also just going to say, like, sort of having like a second row of buttons, you know, like maybe on like sort of like a trouser front or something, you know, sort of have like a second.
Absolutely. I mean, often shirts have them at the wrist, don't they? So why not have them in other places where you would have buttons, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and inherently there are some garments that are, you know, more suited to body changes, like more boxy or trapeze styles. And if you are going for garments that have got, you know, you want some shaping, but maybe think about the shaping being in terms of pleats or gathering, you know, or ties that can be adjusted, or that, you know, create shaping in a way that's still going to give you a lot of room around the areas that we often do fluctuate the most in, like around the waist or around the upper arms, things like that. Also, sorry, scrolling through my notes here. Elasticated waists are everyone's friend. And they don't have to be like fully elasticated waists. So I know that a lot of people don't like that look, but there are lots of garments that have got elastication in just maybe the side, or just at the back, like partly elastic. Like, for example, like I know that Named Clothing have got a pair of trousers called I don't know if it's the Aina or the Aina trousers. It's A-I-N. And it looks from the front like a normal kind of pair of like fly front trousers or culottes, but at the back it's got a section of elastication. So things like that.
Very good.
Shorts and Pants by True Bias is another one, or the Emerson Pants and Shorts by True Bias is another one. So ones that just got a little bit of elastication, if that's not really like what you kind of, you know, I quite like an elasticated waist. I kind of got quite a kind of like art teacher vibe, but I know it's cool. Yeah, and then also think about if you've got something that's got an elasticated waist, you could even have like use buttonhole elastic. You've seen that? It's often used in children's clothing, yeah, and you can use that for adults as well. Like you can literally tighten it up, so you've got both the elasticity, but also
on the side. Yeah,
totally. There are a couple of patterns that have got like adjustable straps, like the Mitchell trousers by Closet Core Patterns, and I love a pinafore and a dungaree. So so there's lots that can be that are either already quite loose at the waist, like the Yanta overalls by Helen's Closet, or the Heyday dungarees by Waves and Wild. But also you've got like the Greta dungarees is one that I love. That's a pattern by Made My Wardrobe, and that's got a tie feature that you can adjust as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and also garments that if you want a more of a slinky kind of silhouette, garments that are cut on the bias. So for example, the Sadie slip dress by Tazuti, and also the Evie bias skirt by Tazuti, that will give you a slimmer silhouette, but the fact that the fabric is cut on the bias naturally inherently gives it more give. So yeah, so that's something that you can incorporate. But do listen to both those episodes. I think the first one is 72, and I think the second one we did a follow-up. I think it was 76, but I'll have to check. And that one actually included some amazing feedback I got from listeners who gave me so many more ideas and
exciting.
examples of how they sew for incorporating body changes. So please give both those a listen, because it's such a wealth of information that really good resource. Oh,
very good, very good. I was going to bring that one up. I made some elasticated waist trousers. You can't see the elastic in the front, with a fake fly and a button section. Oh, exciting!
I love that.
And they are my favourite. That really
sounds perfect. That sounds so good. That's like the best of both worlds, isn't it? You're like kind of
exactly. And I was just thinking that I will show, because I did have some inevitable weight gain in lockdown, and I'll show some trousers that I did myself. So I did 2 pairs. Now, kind of within it, I've had it before, when I was like at college and things like that, and eating nothing but biscuits and things at like working through the night. But there was just something about kind of lockdown. And I have like so many clothes now that I'm on a bit of a thing of, I don't want to buy anything new because I don't need to, I've got all these clothes. So I kind of, I get really hard on myself because of that, because it's just like, I know how much of a waste it is to kind of keep buying. So then within all that, I realized that I have a bit of like a body dysmorphia kind of thing. So I actually spent like 2 years not wearing trousers because I couldn't fit into any of my trousers.
Oh.
So I just wore dresses and skirts. Then kind of 2022, I was like, what am I doing? Like, I was sort of, we'd worked off some of it doing hikes and things, but I was just like, I need to, I'm always saying to people about, sort of body positivity and things like that. I'm not doing that myself for myself. So I'm like, I'm a tailor, but equally like I never spend any time doing my own stuff. So I was like, let's start sort of making.
Oh, look at those!
So I know it's kind of goes a bit funny on the camera.
They look amazing.
So these are ones that I'd actually, I used to work in Levi's as a tailor. So I actually took in the waist when I was there. And then I always wanted, because these are like the 501s, but the female style, because I wasn't allowed the men's style, which is like, I just find that so bizarre, because it's like they're just trousers at the end of the day. But anyway, we weren't allowed to get them on our uniform. So the women's ones came up a bit slimmer, but I kind of wanted bigger. So when I did the waist, I was like, well, I'm going to like really expand out the leg.
That looks amazing.
The sort of hem tapers.
Yeah, I like how you've got the contrast fabric as well, that kind of railroad stripe.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, I need to like go out there. There's another pair that I think are like hidden over there. But with the other pair, I have actually since taken in the waist, but then sort of kept the leg. I haven't quite, they're just like a straight stripe going down there in a plain blue. But so then it kind of does a little tucking on the side, kind of a bit like that, if that shows up very well. But yeah, so that's kind of just one of those, and it's sort of, and I've since done it to a bunch of sort of trousers. There's a few that I'm like, it's time to just move on from them, because I don't need that many, but also like they maybe don't actually fit on my waist properly, because I actually like things, it's so funny because I always like things a bit higher on my waist, everyone that comes to my classes are always like, oh yeah, we like them sort of a bit lower. So I'm like, okay. So yeah, so all the ones that kind of go down lower are the ones that I'm going to like say goodbye to, because it's sort of, it's one thing kind of putting a stripe down the side if I need it widened there, but then if I'm having to like, you know, just change like the whole trouser, I'm like, I might as well just make some for myself if I'm going.
But that goes back to knowing your personal preference of style and fit, isn't it?
Yeah,
just acknowledging that, but you know what, it's not worth me making this change because it's still not going to feel how I want to feel.
Exactly, that's the thing. So yeah, like that's something that I've like I'm making like I say, sort of this whole like change this year to actually do stuff for me. So it's sort of within that I'm
nice,
really going for my wardrobe. So so that's just like something, you know, if I can understand these things in myself, and you know, like you say, sort of I'm like 40 now this year, and I've realized that my bum and my thighs are I'm coming into sort of the family sort of size of it, that it's that's something that isn't necessarily going to sort of change. They might sort of tone up a little bit, but you know, I've always had sort of bigger thighs. So so it's sort of I'm now adapting for that, and it's sort of so whether it be kind of clothes that people have already made, or you know, having their wardrobe, or are going to make, you know, sort of think about those sort of things, like you say, to make change of. But yeah, and I think like you say, it's so important, especially for those of us that sort of have periods and things, to understand the fluctuation within the month, and that maybe isn't about making a garment that can also sort of like change throughout that month. Maybe you just have like a little section of sort of clothes that are kind of, you know, because sometimes you just want to be in super like comfortable clothes during that time, because you just don't like want anything sort of touching your body, so it's sort of maybe even you just have like a small section of your wardrobe that's kind of just for that time.
And also body changes, I have to say as well, like body changes can go the other way as well. People can end up losing weight or getting smaller for various reasons as well, so that's another aspect as well that you can kind of factor in. And I think also, if you're going to be making a garment that's more fitted, no matter whether or not you're going to be, you end up putting on some weight or expanding in some areas, or the other way round, if you're making a garment that's got, I learned this from a fitting expert called Naomi Fater, the more seam lines, the more opportunities you have for altering things, for making them bigger and smaller as well. So things that have got maybe like fisheye darts, you know, that go down the body, or long princess seams. So it's not all having to be taken in or released at the side seam. You've got a lot more wiggle room with the more seams that you've got as well. You know, think about the centre back, think about the darts, think about the side seams, think about any fisheye darts if you've got them as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And that's also sort of like goes for like sort of the length of body and things. If a garment doesn't have a waist seam going through it, you know, will it look odd if you create that seam? I did that for someone recently. If it's a garment that you're making, so then it's in the pattern, can you reduce that? Because they always have like the double lines where you should be able to reduce or expand.
Totally. I made a pencil and I totally forgot that actually I'm quite short-waisted, and I didn't allow for that, and I should have done, but I made it, and it just too long in the body. So I actually created a waist seam, and it actually looked fine because I positioned it where the waist seam would be, and then I was able to kind of pinch that extra couple of centimeters out and bring the rise where it belonged on my body.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's so important to think about as well. Is also, you know, like you might have something that's like empire line, but it may not look so good on you, you know, or do you have that but then also have like another seam that's maybe a bit lower down to sort of like show that waist, you know, sort of like thinking about kind of like you say, it sort of goes back to what you were saying before about what are the things that you constantly wear in your wardrobe. Think about the outside silhouette, but then also the internal lines as to kind of how they look on your body, and you sort of like prefer them, you know, because
Yeah.
you might be, some people just always look good with that like waist seam. So then, you know, like every garment that you make will want to have that seam. It might be that you actually look better without that seam. So then you would make that change within your pattern and not have a seam.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
sort of,
Yeah. And lots of changes, even if you have made a garment or you've bought a garment and maybe you didn't take into account some of these things, often there are changes that could be made to an existing garment as well. Just because a garment is done doesn't mean to say you can't like go into it and make some changes. Like not every change can be made. Like you can't eliminate a waist seam if there is one, but there
yeah.
is a lot of tweaks and alterations you can do. So I don't want people to feel like, you know, they can't then, oh, I didn't think about it at the making stage, so now it's too late, because it's not.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing, like sort of, I was working at Selfridges when I like was first doing alterations, and there was so many restrictions that we had because we had to think about the you know, sort of like how like the garment looked for like the design and blah blah blah. So there was actually a lot of alterations that we weren't allowed to do. It was like it was okay if you did a length, but you couldn't maybe do it as like a bit higher at the back to then make a train, because some people liked that. You could like take in the sides, but you couldn't like add in, you know, if like you needed to add in a dart and it didn't need it. So it was like because everyone always gets this, when like you've got a strapless dress and then you get that extra fabric at the back, it's just because you need to put a dart in there. Or if it will go down to the waisting, you can take it in there, and vice versa into the shoulder. But often it's because you need to have a dart there. You know, we weren't able to do that. So it's like when I started doing it myself, I was like, you know, whatever. Like,
yeah, gonna do everything.
Like, I don't care. You know, like I sort of, there's like certain designers that, you know, sort of like obviously I do care about, but you know, it's not about them, and sort of it's about you and how it looks on you, how you feel within it, and sort of building your confidence and things like that.
That's what we should, I think that's how we should leave it with our people, you know, just say like have the freedom, have experiment, and also enjoy it as well. Like think of it as a fun exploration to learn about yourself. It doesn't have to be this big scary thing, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, this has been so nice. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. This has been really fun. It's been a really nice time. Yeah. And thank you everybody for joining in, and the lovely comments. It's been so nice. Really appreciate it.
Oh, this is so exciting. And also I want to thank anyone that might have subscribed to me since like I said that I was doing this sort of stream with you, since you said that you were doing this stream with me. I'm on that 220 now, so it's really nice. And yeah, do go and check out the other shows that I've done. It's kind of on my YouTube. It's in different blocks of playlists, so you can just go for my sewing videos. I've done some of them when I've done commentary over the top, and then I've got my Dark Side of Fashion series with Whitney. This is my new series, and then I've got some sew along in my studio streams, which I will be doing once I come back from holiday over the weekend. It's just being a bit sort of crazy. I had some surgery and things like that, and I've just not been able to sort of like take my laptop in every time. So once I come back from holiday, I'll have a bit more lease of life, and we'll be able to do that a bit more, because I really like them, and like I say, within them I'll do some of these kind of maybe going over draping and things like that. But yeah, so, and anyone who's from sort of my channel and new to Zoe, do go and check her out. Like I say, her links are in the description of the stream, so do go and check all of those out. And we will say goodbye. Thank you, Maya. I've just been lurking and listening. Really conversation. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you
all. She's someone that I know from like the YouTube space, so she's a regular. But yeah, so thank you all so much. And
thank you.
See you later. Thank you so much, Zoe, for joining me.
Thanks. Bye.
Oops. Bye.